So Ali, it's so good to manage to grab a quick conversation with you. Thank you so much for joining me via the powers of Zoom. Would you just like to introduce who you are, where you are, a bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, my name's Ali Birkett, and I am up here in the Scottish borders. I'm a tenant farmer on the border, actually farm in England, just on the North Northumberland side, but I live in Scotland. So the farm is on one side of the border and I live on the other side of the border. We're tenant farmers farming an arable farm up here of 550 acres. We don't have our own livestock, but we have livestock on the grass on a seasonal basis through the summer. I've been here now 17 years farming the farm, and it was my father-in-law who was doing so before. As well as farming here, I work part-time for Rural Ministries, a Christian charity that works with rural churches, pioneers, and anybody with a glimmer of an idea to see rural church grow. So that's a little bit about who I am and where I am.
That's fantastic, thank you. And I should say, so I'm Sarah Hulme, for the benefit of people watching, and I'm the Methodist Rural Mission and Ministry Officer. But obviously, even that picture is only one tiny bit of what happens for the rest of this country. But how then do you think that connects in more globally as well? Is that something of a sense of you're just in this lovely little bit of North Northumberland, or do you really feel like things impacting you?
Yeah, I think we are. Agriculture is massively exposed to world markets, and I think there are wider questions around getting our heads around globalization. So, for instance, the war in Ukraine, which is currently sadly still going on, big implications for arable farming throughout the world. Yeah. Perhaps the biggest implication is the fact that the Ukrainians themselves aren't able to export the wheat, aren't able to get plantings into the ground for this next season, which, we could well be looking at a food shortage worldwide because available stocks are getting used up quickly. But also because of a lot of fertilizers and other inputs are produced in Eastern Europe, there's ripples there. So input costs have gone up massively. We're all suffering from inflation, but we had a look with an analyst quite recently, and I think there's figures quite widely seen that ag inflation for this last season is around between 30 and 35% inflation on all inputs. Now, commodity prices have gone up, but the volatility is something very difficult to deal with. So we do sometimes get this idyllic picture of this beautiful environmental strip and arable field by the River Tweed, but there are certainly other tensions. Post-Brexit, the support that the Common Agricultural Policy gave us is now being tailed off over the next 5 or 6 years, I think, in all farms in England. There's implications for that as well. Where will future support come from? And again, the jury's out, with some folk in the farming world thinking that the Common Agricultural Policy was failed anyway, that we shouldn't have ever been part of it, but others just seeing it as a loss of income. I'm a tenant farmer. We don't own the land. I'm a tenant farmer. I still have rent to pay. And the bottom line for us is that income from those policies, from the Common Agricultural Policy, is declining away to nothing over the next few years. Doesn't really give us much desire to invest strongly in the business when we don't know what's coming next. Yeah. So it's, often you see all rich farmers and there's never any problem. It's not always like that, for sure.
No. And how are things currently, even just in our country, in terms of rising costs for people going shopping, for example? Do you notice, is that having an impact as well on you as the farmer and the producer, or is it not yet sort of making its way down the chain?
I don't think the impact hasn't made its way down the chain yet from the point of view of rising costs, I don't think. Commodity prices, I have to say this, and our commodity prices, so, we're selling wheat at a lot stronger price than we were 18 months ago. But again, which is great, but it can equally be as volatile the other way. If plantings go up and in 2 years' time we find a world oversupply, it'll come down again. So that volatility is something to get used to. Currently, a lot of the producers are soaking up a lot of the rise in costs. So, for instance, we might sell wheat to a miller or a maltster or something like that. Off it goes to get produced. These guys at the moment are taking a lot of that extra cost as well, because the supermarkets are increasingly pushing their suppliers and taking margins off. I don't want to be completely anti-supermarket. I mean, I go down to our local Tesco, and that's where we buy most of our produce from. But they're powerful. And I think that, you know, rising food costs will happen. There will be inflation. There has to be inflation because there's inflation in the oils and gases that are used to produce a lot of these foods. So yes, I think food costs will go up, and that will be seen on the supermarket shelves before too long.